Shalom.
What's up?
Hey,
How is everyone?
doing well. Looks pretty dark over there, Billy.
Oh, it's because I'm outside.
Are you in the sukkah?
No,
Just kidding.
my suka's a camper. That answer don't fit the right definition. No, the babies had just got to sleep, so I didn't want to be too loud. So I'm outside.
I hear that. Antonio and I just figured out we have babies like 3 days apart
Really?
to the day. Yeah. Yeah. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
So every one of us has small children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 3 months over here. How old is yours, Billy? Like the younger?
I have a 4-year-old and a 4-month-old.
Okay. Well, pretty close. Yeah. So I understand the sleeping thing.
Yeah, lack of sleep.
Or lack
Yeah,
of sleep.
no kidding.
Power naps are a father's best friend.
Yeah, teamwork really makes the dream work there. Very fortunate my lady lets me take naps in the morning.
Oh, I just find naps at like lunch breaks.
Well,
Don't you work from home? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I work from home.
So how's finding naps working from home? Is that easy or hard?
Well, I used to be in an actual proper bedroom in my house, and now I've been relegated to the basement because now my office is the nursery. So, not a terrible setup, but a little more, I don't know, dank than it was before. Yeah, I mean it's noisy sometimes, but I make do. I have places I can go to if I need to set up shop outside of the house.
Oh yeah.
Just thinking of office space. So you got a can of spray for the roaches down there, or
It's not that bad. Not
Yeah.
that bad. Yeah, but it is. Yeah, it's like Milton's office, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
I like it like that though. It's like keeps me out of the chaos. I'm hard to find. You got to dig all the way through a bunch of storage stuff, and I'm like, I've got this little back area carved out.
I'm actually really curious about the working from home option. It's something I'm currently looking into. Is it really hard to kind of have a separate space for work when it's in your home space? Does it really mess with your life a little bit, or?
You do lose some of that, like the proper. I'm leaving the house. I'm traveling. I'm actually going through the effort of going to a different space that's physically that far away. But honestly, even if it were just next door or even in your backyard, like there's something about physically just like kind of leaving the house that's probably the majority of it, versus kind of like stumbling out of your bedroom in your pajamas to the next room and sitting down there or something. Or like some people work out of their bedroom too or something, and like that's even less distance. It's I don't know, some people have a harder time or an easier time. I'm kind of like, it's fine. A dedicated spot I think is more important for me.
Yeah,
How about
can't
you,
do my
Billy?
job from home, so I can't do my job from home. So I'm stuck driving an hour to work.
How has the storms and the hurricane affected you?
Well, we got hit with 3 hurricanes this year.
Yeah.
Well, 1 tropical storm and 2 hurricanes. It's made my life extremely busy. You know, we did some tornado work because there were some tornadoes that touched down not far from here. And then I didn't go back up to Rocky Mount. Last year I worked a tornado up in Rocky Mount and in July, and this year a tornado from Helen. Helen caused a tornado to pop up in the same spot, hit the same place again. So, but I haven't been able to make it up there. I've been to Asheville once, and I'm heading Friday after work. I'm heading to. I've never been there before. It's called Newland, I think. Anyway, I'm going up there to do some road work, try to open up some mountain roads. But every other weekend for the next foreseeable future, 2-3 months, will be uh, somewhere in the mountains trying to open up roads or get houses cleaned out and all the water damage out and mold stuff sprayed. It's a
Man, you
it's a
managed
bad
to.
it,
Oh
it's a
god.
bad time to be homeless in the mountains. This is a brutal time of year in the mountains, and a very brutal time of year. So at, at least everybody I know is full bore, like just making a lot of sacrifices to try to do what we can. The organizations I work with had so many people that were volunteering that they had to cut the volunteer roster off. Like they had to turn the volunteer button off on the website. Um, so anyway, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, impressive you decided to make time to come on stream. All things considered.
This is important too.
Amen. All right, so we've already got some jokers in the peanut gallery here. Nice one, David. Yeah, I think the traditional greeting is just shalom.
Shalom.
Noahide. I'm gonna go Noahide right now. Noahide your comment. Andrew asks, has your nearest rabbi allowed you to join their services? I don't have a ton of experience with that, so maybe I can go first and just kind of give you all like my experience with that because I probably have less to say. So, I did visit our local Chabad house and met the rabbi there. I happened to just show up one day just before Passover, and he happened to be home, and he happened to just have gotten home from Brooklyn or Crown Heights, where he was visiting 770 for something having to do with the Rebbe, and so I think I happened to catch him at just the right time because he was doing like Passover preparation. It would have been pretty busy, but per Jacob's recommendation, I did give him a copy of the 7 Laws of Noah in Hebrew. I bought that online, and then I have my English copy of the Divine Code. Yeah, he asked me if I was Jewish. I was like, I don't think so, but like pretty like low likelihood of that. But
Did you yell at him?
no, I didn't yell at him. He was super friendly, and I think seemed a little like both taken aback, but also not totally shocked. Like, so it was an interesting interaction. We haven't had one since, but it's tough for me personally, just because my whole family is not sort of doing the same thing I'm doing. So it's kind of like my own thing a little more. And like, so it's just harder to like, carve out time with 4 young kids under 10 and say, hey, honey, I'm going to go to shul. And she's just like, maybe we should go to church. And so that's just the whole thing. So that's different for me, but yeah, so I haven't broached the subject, but I did meet him, and he gave me his email address, and that's on my list to email him and say what's up. But there's always a holiday, right? So I'm always like, he's probably pretty busy with, just constant holidays. So I'm just a little more shy. But how about you guys?
Yeah, I mean that doesn't surprise me. That was kind of my initial encounter with the rabbi here when I first met him. It was like right before all the holidays, and it's like we'll link up after the holidays. And I was like, wait, when is that? Had to look up all the holidays, but no. Honestly, I don't have much to say on my end either. Mostly because I don't regularly attend right now. I have attended services. I have met the rabbi, met his family. I've attended a few holidays. I've actually done they have Zoom Torah sessions every week. I've done a few of those, but life kind of got really hectic and busy ever since my firstborn, and then we just had the second one right after. So I can just say that we're on really good terms. I'm definitely welcome there, um, and I do contribute there too. I've helped volunteer and I donate too. So it's cool. It's like it's there when I'm ready to try to attend services more often again. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, I haven't even attempted. The closest synagogue to me is an hour and a half away, so I don't. I yeah, I haven't. Now, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. Oh, actually, it's longer than that now. I don't know. 13 years ago, um, I was involved with the Reformed synagogue, and they were very welcoming and open, and had a fairly decent experience with them. That was, over a decade ago. Here, recent times, it's for me. I had the same family dynamic. My most of my family's going to church, so I just kind of go to church and uh, leave out some words. that's that's what I do.
Sandy says, hello. Nice to see you too, Sandy, or nice to hear from you. Yeah, you could sign up for the newsletter if they have one. I get news from local shul and Chabad at university. I do actually, yeah, I sign up for their mailing list, so I get the weekly email from the rabbi, and he's always got a good little commentary on the Torah portion and everything. So that's cool. Um, but it's as far as I get. I mean, admittedly, West Michigan is not a huge Jewish population, so this is kind of an outpost, and so I guess it's like kind of maybe I don't know if that's like good or bad, if like for a Noahide's prospect, right? But like I could imagine a future if Noahides become more um, numerous, that some of these like Chabad outposts where the Noahides are going to outnumber the Jews like pretty quickly, and then it's going to be interesting to see how they react to that, and how that maybe like changes or complicates their kind of specific mission of to the Jews specifically in that community. So that's kind of so one of the ironies of like Chabad, right? Is that they're very like focused on the Jewish community, and that's why they're all over the place. But like they're also probably the most likely or most probable uh, um, sort of Jewish presence in most parts of the world. Where you're not already in a Jewish community.
Yeah, the limited contact I've had with Chabad, um, uh, both of them are based out of their house. They're doing services out of their house and stuff. So that's definitely not something I feel comfortable going to do.
Yeah, right. It's like pretty intimate because it's a smaller community. They don't necessarily have a proper synagogue building. Yeah, a house shul, as it were. Um, it's funny because our Chabad house is like right next to the Reform or conservative like temple, which is like looks like a Protestant church, and it's a lot larger. It's a lot bigger, and it's like right next door. So. Um, they do stuff together, but that's interesting what the dynamic is between those two groups.
Yeah.
Da-
Well, what
I was
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
well, just I wanted David to called out an interesting point. Like reform is probably going to be more open, but like also the most compromising. It's so there's kind of an irony in that. What were you saying, Billy?
What I noticed when I was looking for synagogues and looking around and trying to figure out what the best fit, because I'm in the middle of the state, so I can kind of hit three major cities within about the same amount of drive. And something I noticed in the three most major cities in North Carolina. The Orthodox, the Habads, and the Reforms were all within like 3 miles of one another. Like they all, at least here, they all kind of take up the same part of the city. They're, they're all right on top of one another. Kind of funny.
I didn't know that was the situation over where you're at, Billy. It's kind of
That's just the three major cities. I mean, it might just be unique to North Carolina for all I know. But Charlotte's actually very bad. Charlotte's got like 7 synagogues all within 4 miles of one another.
so I wonder if we should get into the meat of things. Like
Oh,
well, so something that I'm really curious to hear from both of you guys is how you guys make sense of Noahidism, the whole Noahide thing, especially how it's changed, your perception of it has changed from the beginning to now.
Bill, you want to go first?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely guilty of trying to do the whole Judaism light thing. Guilty as charged. Because coming from a Protestant background, I read the Bible and do what it says, right? So, but to be honest with you, my life has gotten a whole lot easier not trying to do Judaism light. Like I other than the last holiday that I'm supposed to do, it's the only holiday I even try to observe. I don't pay attention to the rest of it. I do my normal daily reading, uh, mixed in with a couple of, you know, with a couple books from Rambam's area, time frame. But other than that, dude, I'm just, I, I, I've gone completely insular. So I went the exact opposite of where I was, where trying to find community, fighting for community, you know, build a thing to where it's been uh, more. A year and a half ago, I would have I would have frowned at the idea of uh, just trying to strictly adhere to one idea of how to do things. The more strict idea of how to do things, I would have frowned upon it. But I find that with the way I live my life is a lot easier for me to do my thing because I used to think that that the only way to serve God was to worship Him and to pray to Him and do His things. I realized through the help of Jacob and Rabbi Shulman and Rabbi Mullet that everyday life is serving God. Just getting up, going to work is serving God. Taking care of my kids, doing the whole foster thing and just every aspect of my life that I'm trying to serve the people around me is serving God first, and then everybody else. And so over the last year and a half, that's something that I've come to realize that I don't need the big grand scheme of things. I don't need a whole bunch of people around me to be able to still be serving God and doing my main purpose, and that's to make the world better. It's the way I understand it is the Noahides are to lift the is to lift the world up, and the Hebrew folks are the ones who are preparing a place for God, right? So we're just making God's trip closer, and the Hebrews are making a place for him to land. So I hope I hope I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely.
David asks, have you guys considered trying a messianic congregation?
Can I jump in there right quick?
Yeah.
All right. So the I was part. I ran the whole gambit from trying to convert to Judaism to actually, because I didn't start out a Christian, to actually converting to Christianity, to being a Messianic, to being part of the Messianic guys, and then Torah roots, and then all the way to Noahidism. So I've been through the whole gambit, and with the Messianic congregations are weird. They're very strange, but the Torah roots ones are even more strange. Um, the the easiest way for me to explain it might be because I'm in the South, but the Torah roots guys that I know that I've been around that I've been involved with are very similar to the snake handlers, on the Christian side. So, I mean, to me, it's not recommendable at all. But that's just from this small town hillbilly's opinion.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're gonna have a lot to say about that. Remember you telling me about your experiences?
Yeah, they weren't very good ones. Now, I did have some really good experiences with a specific organization that's out of the Midwest, but they don't advertise, and they're not taking new people in, and they're with the nature of what they do and how they operate, and they're not kind, or they're kind to new people. I mean, they're kind to people they don't know, but they're not taking, they're not entertaining any new people, let's say. So if I had a recommendation for somebody, it'd be them, but they won't accept you anyway. So there's not even a point in making that recommendation.
And how about you, Jonathan?
In terms of a Messianic congregation, sorry, I fell for the troll in the comments and was trying to figure out what he's
Oh,
talking, what he's totally on about. I mean, I I mean, Messianic means like Christian, right? So, like in this situation, yeah. So, I mean, like, no, that's not. It's not what I'm
oh yeah.
about.
No, I I was just talking about your experience with the Noahide thing.
Oh, I mean, like, yeah, I have zero congregation, no social, like, yeah, no group. Hasn't bothered me. So my way of getting into it was not through any sort of messianic movement or anything like that. No Torah observant Christianity kind of thing. And so I never had sort of that part of you know um, religious life or spiritual life as kind of a thing that I had to like um, deal with or grapple with. So I went from being basically a non-practicing Christian, like I mean, borderline atheist, I suppose, or something, to sort of just understanding the Noahide thing and then accepting it, and then it's just been a personal thing. But I mean, I guess the good news is like uh, you don't have to be part of some kind of a group or community. And even though it might be a good idea, like I don't really have a dog in that fight. Um, I um, I understand. Like I don't know. I understand why people like it. I'm not going to hate on it. I don't feel like I necessarily need it, but I do think that probably like I'm against the idea of like having um, a separate and specific Noahide community that is like in any way um, institutionalized. I think that it should be tied to an Orthodox synagogue under the direction of an Orthodox rabbi, and 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 it shouldn't be a standalone thing. even if there are like so-called Noahide sages out there, I mean, I guess maybe someday that could be something where it could, but it would still have to like tie into, um, some kind of rabbinical oversight, because you know, that's where the laws are from, um, from Sinai, which was given to the nation of Israel. So, um, I might change my tune, right? Like, I guess we'll see where life leads. But for right now, my religious and spiritual practice is very solo. I mean, outside of this, and just participating in conversations, dialogue, whatever, with other people. But, um, and I'm sure if I found Noahides within spitting distance where I live, like I would probably be, trying to do maybe not estuary kind of things, but things, just like doing social meetups and stuff like that, just for support and discussion and things like that. So, um, but I'm I guess hard to say I'm against like Noahide congregations. That feels like a too strong word, but I do take pretty seriously the um, uh, prohibition, or just not creating a new religion. Um,
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me because Noahidism as a movement is still really young, and so my view on the whole thing is no matter how the movement goes forward, I don't see it moving forward without some type of engagement from the rest of the Orthodox Jewish community, or there's going to have to be some oversight. Just because I forgot who said it. I don't know if it was Rabbi Shulman or some other rabbi I listened to on the internet. Um, there's something like we didn't have. I actually think it was Rabbi Bradowitz. Um, there's no like surviving Noahide group today that has this tradition that has lasted all the way back, and so in the absence of that, we're gonna need some rabbinical guidance, basically. Like it can't just be we figure it out, um, because then that'd be I think that would fall into uh, what I would also consider creating your own religion, because you basically just be looking at the Torah in isolation and just trying to draw conclusions.
Well, I don't see. I don't see how, like, when people say congregation. Let back up. When I say Noahide, I'm specifically talking about the Orthodox idea of Noahide, right? Not the Karaite idea or anything like that. I'm talking about specifically what uh, what Orthodox says what a Noahide is. And so if we're talking about congregation, I definitely think it, um, you know, just part of a regular synagogue, right? Um, with that said, as we grow in numbers, we can very quickly outnumber, outnumber the Jews in their own synagogue. And so, if there was to be an independent place of worship for a Noahide organization, for me to be comfortable with it, I would still require the person leading that to be trained as an Orthodox rabbi, period. Because there's so much information outside of the knock that you have to know in order to follow this specific path, right? If they don't know the Gemara, if they don't know the Talmud, if they're not intimate with it, then I don't feel comfortable taking them on.
All right, I just got rid of a bunch of noise in the comments. That was.
I was gonna say, is
At
there?
first, I was like, "Well, I mean, let's know what's he talking about," and the next thing I know, it's just like, "Oh, okay, this is insanity." But
I was gonna ask if there were shenanigans going on in the comments.
yeah, I mean, it's like, does it happen that often? I'm usually like watching the comments on most streams, and like usually you don't get a complete utter troll. Like it's the worst of it is like Trey. Trey says, "Yo, what groups in the U.S. are breaking the Noahide laws?" You're gonna have to get. I don't know how to answer that. Nobody. So anyway, where were we? Sorry, I lost the thread.
Yeah, I don't pay attention to the comments. That's how you get a canceled. That's how you get a canceled Billy Ray on the internet. Paying attention to comments.
Yeah, I obviously don't have a good filter. Use the wrench with great abandon.
Trust the wrench people.
Yeah. Well, Don asked like, what's the criteria for using the wrench? I'm like, if you have to ask, use the wrench. Use the wrench.
So,
take us back, Billy.
Well, coming from a Protestant background and also a pagan background, I mean, I ran the gambit on religious thought, dude. Crazy. Yeah, I've been in too many situations where people were just willy nilly, and you could read the same sentence and get 9 different opinions. They say you hear some people say you get 3 Jews in a room, you get 4 opinions. Well, you get 5 Baptists in a room, you get 50 opinions. So it's I definitely like to lean towards the more less nuanced, more stricter way of interpreting things, and so I'm gonna want. Too many times in my life I've trusted people that were not well trained to guide me spiritually, and I've ended up in some strange places. I will not put any amount of faith in a spiritual leader who is not fully immersed in the Gomorrah for sure. Plain and simple.
Yeah, I don't even know how to. I mean, that was one of the hardest things I think for me, was just how to evaluate sources or proper teaching, because of course you can get on the internet and find all sorts of stuff. Lots of different rabbis, some more popular, some less popular. And so even if I don't even know if I could say like how are you in Talmud, like how would I even be able to sort of evaluate that? So it's like you have to rely on I think trusted sources. I mean, and then for at least for me in this forum, in this channel, it's been Jacob, Chezi, Yosef, and then who they say to listen to. And I mean, it's not hard, right? But I think like as far as like any kind of local rabbi. I mean, although I suppose like how bad can your local Chabad rabbi be?
Well, if you're sticking with Chabad, I think you'll be all right. The issue that you run into with Chabad is there's so much mysticism in it. It's real easy to get confused.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I I sometimes get kind of like Tanya'd out, or like also it's just understanding what is applicable to you as a non-Jew. You know, like what parts of this teaching is spiritually connected to you or whatever, and like so there's not, I think, a good guide in that department as well. Like I think that the most we have are books on the articulation of the laws and the practical application of the laws, and then the prayer book. But when it comes to anything Kabbalistic, it's tough to sort out what is what. And even within Judaism, it's not for the uninitiated. So it's what hope do we have? So I don't.
Still waiting.
What
Still
were you
waiting for the Tanya for Noahide's book.
Tanya for Gentiles. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's not always flattering either. So you have to put it in context. I mean that but so I just keep it simple personally and don't try to go too deep. I mean, there's enough to do just to work on character traits and improving your life, and just the path of the just doing good and avoiding bad. And I mean that's it's hard enough. So I don't worry too much about like saying blessings and all that kind of stuff, like too intricately.
I find regimentation helps me a lot. So I have certain times I say prayer, not because of religious, not because of feeling like I'm commanded to say them at certain times, but because I've noticed it's easier for me to regiment my prayer life to a specific time frame. That way it gets done. All right. It gets done. It's guaranteed. It's going to get done every day. And I know this sounds bad, but sometimes you know, studying of the word and prayer can interfere with other responsibilities.
Yeah.
And I don't think I don't think the Most High wants us to neglect some responsibilities for to spend more time with Him. I think it's got to be balanced, and for me, balance is 3 times a day. Short amounts of time, but 3 times a day is balance.
Yeah.
And I mean, even with the books, I have the Divine Code now, and I've pulled my teeth to get through it a couple times. And I have Sharky's book, and I think Sharky's book is really good starter for someone who is uninitiated at all, right?
Yeah.
I think if
Yeah.
somebody who knows very little to nothing about this tried diving into the Divine Code, they get overwhelmed and drop off. People like to frame, like Andrew. Yes, you, Andrew, like to frame the 7 like it's easy. But when you start digging into the 7, it's it to do the 7 perfectly or as close to perfect as possible is time consuming on its own.
Yeah. No, totally agree. I think the more you learn about it, the more you understand the outflows of those basic 7 headline laws. There's a lot to pay attention to, and that's even before just working on yourself and improving. And trying to be a better father, trying to be a better husband, trying to be a better friend, a better neighbor, giving charity, all those things. Uh, focusing your thoughts on the right things and not the wrong things. And I mean, even just like subtle things where you just take for granted, like customs that we do in our society and culture that are just like, wait a minute, that's maybe not like an egregious violation of that law, but like I don't want to say like being more like being scrupulous per se, but just there are some things where, I'm not coming, no examples like come to mind, but like there's a lot of the laws of theft, for instance, the prohibition of theft. There's a lot of subtlety to it, like especially if you have the divine code, like there's a couple hundred pages devoted to the nature of what, like how all that stuff works out, and like I don't think we intend to steal much, but you can do it inadvertently. I mean, so, and
Yeah.
it sort of feels petty, but it's like that's part of the law. So, um, so we should try to do it as best as possible.
Right. So like when you're on the clock, you know what I'm saying? I mean, if you have a 4-minute conversation with your employee, with a coworker or an
I was just thinking
employee
about
about
this the other day.
what's going on with you, like personal thing, uh, is that stealing? Well, it's hard to know because, part of being a team is having some camaraderie and sharing personal things, right? So it's, you know, this kind of these kind of things gets real difficult, and that's where it takes someone who's been trained for a very damn long time to talk to about and get good ideas about it. But you said you were thinking about it, Antonio. What did you come up with?
I could have swore Jacob said something in the Discord about it, especially when it came concerning corporations. Um, I don't remember what the answer was or how it would apply to us, but um, the short answer is I don't know exactly. But okay, I guess I don't know who was that. Jacob or was that you in
That's
text?
that is Jacob. If your employer
Okay,
expects it isn't stealing, so yeah, there's a lot of notes, even in the divine code, about how if there's sort of the cultural norms, then you're good. So it's sort of like if it's something that everybody does, then um, um, then you're fine, right? Like if everyone's like it's there's not like if everyone does it, it's okay, but kind of if it's like the custom of the land.
well,
So I mean, if you're shooting the breeze by the water cooler um, with a coworker, and like people just do that because everyone knows that that's what people do, like that's okay. And like if your employer knew that you were doing that, like would they be upset? No, because like that's just what people do. So I don't actually get like too fearful of like, oh my god, like we're stealing all the time, and we're like as if like we're eating bugs in our salad and we're trying to eat kosher. So um, Jacob says the person paying you knows you aren't stealing. So it's like, and I think that's pretty like nothing, not something that's not like a big deal
so
for
I'd
most
asked
for
you
most of
guys
us.
about your experience, and I'd say my experience with the Noahide project, I guess we can call it, it's quite similar to yours, Jonathan. Because I was raised in a secular household, didn't have a religious community that I belonged to. So all this at first was very novel and exciting, and it honestly still is. Um, but maybe because of where I'm coming from, I don't know. I'm a lot more like I don't worry about that stuff too much either. not because I don't care about what the right way is, but because there's only so much that you can know at one time, and you're always trying to leave, or you're trying to become less ignorant. And so I understand that this is just kind of like we're all on a journey, trying to learn more, trying to do it the right way. But there's just so much, especially with the divine code. You guys have the divine code now, so you can see for yourself what like how dense it can get. Um, but yeah, I don't really lose sleep overnight with those like the small questions of theft. Um, because to the best of my ability, I don't steal. Um, but I guess if there were ways in which I didn't know about it, I definitely would want to rectify that. So
Yeah, I was kind of using it as an example, not something that I think about too much. But anyway, it's just, it's easy to get it's easy to make small mistakes, but it's also easy to get sucked into these super complicated topics and you know, paralysis by analysis, right?
yeah,
You know. So, but there's a concept that I've been thinking about for a while. Um, and it goes back to holding to the stricter interpretation of things. When you're teaching your child to cross the road, for the first time, you teach them look left, right. You see a car, don't go right. Well, that doesn't really apply in like a big parking lot where there's pedestrian walk spaces and cars will stop for you. And how do you teach a child under 5 uh how to know when the car stop is going to stop or keep going? you know so, and I kind of look at the Noahide path that way. Is um if you start with a very narrow defined, this is what I'm going to do and this is how I'm going to do it, very very narrowly defined. As you grow in your knowledge, you'll be able to make those subjective decisions of, okay, that like the car stopping so you can use a pedestrian walkway. you know um I think it's definitely a mistake to start the other way. Is just everything's all fine under the sun, and then you narrow down. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, 100%. Can even be counterproductive, right?
Yeah, yeah. It can be very counterproductive, and then you spend more time trying to break habits that you created than you do having intimate knowledge. Cursory knowledge is good for trivia, but intimate knowledge of the creator is how relationships are formed and bonded and continue to stay. I'm much more interested in having a living relationship with the creator of the universe than I am with dogmatic rules. But um, when you're young and understanding things, dogma is very important. I think where a lot of people mess up is they hold on to their dogma and they never let it go.
Yeah, I can think of a variety of scenarios where that's certainly the case.
Yeah. And so, with Showman, I listen to his videos used to piss me off so bad. I used, I used to get so mad. But his last video where he was breaking down the holidays, and he was, saying, well, this holiday's for this. How does this actually apply to a non-Jew? That's a damn valid. That's a good point. you know. But when you're first getting into these things, you don't know how to break things down, dissect them to their smallest point to see how these things affect you and affect your life, and if they're for you or not. Um, anyway, that's my 2 cents.
I liked what you said earlier about the ways in which you serve God, particularly through the everyday, the mundane, what we consider the mundane, um, taking care of your responsibilities. Because I think, at least from an outsider perspective, an outsider to religion, it seems that there's a misconception about what is considered religious or not. And I guess a lot of people from the outside, like me, they would think religious would mean you go to church, you have your ritual, personal, communal. That's like at the forefront, and that's like a symbol of your religious commitments. And in Judaism, it's I don't know if it's too far to say that it's flipped, like that's flipped on its head. It's more like the home life is very important. It's kind of a cornerstone of a religious life, like getting married, having children, being a better person, doing the right thing in communities, participating in those communities.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that I really appreciate that in at least in the Jewish from the Jewish standpoint.
Well, think about kids for a minute. When you're trying to take care of kids, there's a lot of investment of time and energy into it. Missing work, halting careers to take care of children. And uh, by choosing to bring children in this world and then choosing to try to do a good job at it, defined by what God's idea is a good job. Um, that in itself will grow you so much because most of your life is selfless at that point. There's it don't matter how bad you feel when the baby needs a bottle, the baby needs a damn bottle. It don't matter what you got going on or the deadlines you got going on. None of that matters. The poopy diaper matters right now. My stomach is upset, or I'm scared of the dark, or I need a bedtime story, or I'm hungry. All those things supersede everything else you got going on in your life. And so, you know, having kids and then trying to parent in a godly manner, um, I think teaches you how to be way less self-centered and more centered on other people, and to serve God, you have to be centered on more than just yourself, right? And so, raising kids, in my opinion, is the number one way to learn how to serve God with His people in mind. In my opinion.
Case in point, you know, Jonathan just had to attend to his children, right?
Right.
Well, one of them anyway.
Yeah, I might have to do the same at some point later, but yeah.
What were you guys talking about?
I mean, I guess I was talking about, um, I liked what Billy said about serving God through the day to day mundane activities and tasks, and I didn't realize, I guess, as an atheist prior to being a Noahide, how religious that was.
Yeah. I mean, even being religious in a different context prior to being Noahide. Admittedly, there are in like say Catholicism some lay movements that are more focused on the sort of mundane domestic life kind of things. But they tend to be a little more extraordinary, right? That's not a normal thing. So it's kind of interesting to be like coming from a Christian background, Protestant and then Catholic. So kind of seeing the whole gamut to sort of have all of that stripped away. And now what is your spiritual religious life, but to be kind of just normal, like have kids, change diapers, learn to be more tolerant and patient and, control your anger, control your, all those sorts of things. And I mean, those things are not easy to do. And, it's like, okay, well, that's just what I need to focus on. Or, giving.
And there's plenty there.
Yeah. And I got a lot of mouths to feed. So like giving charity, I'm just like, ugh, like charity begins at home.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, there's a lot of things where it's like,
where's your charity box, Jonathan?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, Rabbi Manis Friedman has said on multiple occasions that you can do tzedakah with kindness. Just being kind to people around you, calling somebody, randomly, one of your people you ain't talked to in a while, can be tzedakah, can be charity. So you never know where that phone call is going to land.
Yeah.
So, but even then, in this busy world, dedicating 5 minutes to make a phone call or to have a random conversation with someone at the gas pump, sometimes that can be taxing too. But I think we can be charitable in a lot of ways, and not just monetarily. But it all gets to become a challenge. The more kids, the more responsibilities you have, and the more you grow as a person, the less time you have for the small things. But I think the small things, just like saying good morning to somebody at the gas station, is, I think, just as equally as important as the big things.
So we could, Garth says, if you are affluent, give. If you are struggling, be willing to receive. Yeah.
And I think even if you are struggling, you should still give.
Yeah, I mean, but I guess also being willing to receive is maybe also something that's important. But yeah, I mean, I think both. That's also true. I was going to say that if we want to take the conversation in like kind of a different direction, something that we all sort of have in common, the three of us, right, is we all are part of Jacob's Discord server, which is part of the larger Peterson sphere / TLC. What do you guys think is sort of the Noahide role and path in this kind of online community? What should we be doing, not doing? Should we be more aggressively like putting our voices out there? Should we just not pay attention to it? I mean, it's a very I'd say overtly Christian space, and we're kind of hanging out here like along with sort of this kind of like Jewish contingent, and I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
Well, in the real life, my area of operation is in the Christian spaces, right? Like when I was in Nashville a couple of weeks ago, I was working at churches, working with churches. When I'm going up this weekend, I'll be working with the church and sleeping at a church, right? So for me, I'm always going to be in a Christian space, right? I can't take the whole don't walk in a church idea too seriously, because then nothing would get done on my end. But I struggle with the internet thing, man. I find it hard to have time to get involved with any of the squabbles. Like, when I first got part of the Discord server, I tried, you know, for quite a while, 5, 6 months of, you know, uh, putting out different opinions and pointing out some obvious flaws and some things, and all it turned in for me was a fight, an argument, and I just don't have time for pretend arguments on the internet anymore.
Yeah, I'd say, especially the last year or so, I've been record busy my life than ever before. So my engagement on the Discord has been not as frequent, but I do try to keep up to date, and I usually can manage to keep up to date. Um, but as far as the Pearson Sphere stuff and the direction everything's going, I guess just online, I think it's just running its course. Um, I don't know if we have to be aggressive. I think the truth is just asserting itself right now. I think there are ideas that are being propagated right now that we've already given those ideas a shot, and so sure, it's wasting time, but for those people that insist on still rehashing those ideas, I think they're just going to find that it's a dead end, and I think it's okay. I think there are other streams like Jacob's server, for example, the the Jewish server. I think they're, of course, I'm going to think that's more on track um, towards where things should be moving. Um, where exactly that is, I'm not sure. I know there's the Fountain of Comfort project, but I know there's just like a broader project going on as well. Maybe it's not explicitly stated what it is, but there's a lot of overlap, like especially with the whole secure distributed cognition thing. I was going to mention that earlier. We were talking about how do you sort through what's proper, what's not when it comes to Orthodox Jewish teaching. It's like you have to trust somebody. And with me, um, as far as this space is concerned, Jacob was my first link.
Yeah, I mean, same. Well, I guess I found Jacob through PBK, who I found through the algorithm due to like a Jordan Peterson thing, right? So a fairly common thread. Um, yeah, I think the reason I asked that is because in some ways, like you've got a community that is focused on ideas of like meaning crisis, and a lot of the solutions that are presented are kind of go to church, Christianese solutions, and I'm kind of like is that, I mean, there are other paths, there are other things to consider, so it's not about necessarily wanting to like convert people, or that it's more just like, and I mean, I think Jacob does a great job of this, right? Just establishing, putting up a shingle that says like, "Hey, Judaism over here," and then he doesn't have to do a whole lot of outreach. People come to him, and so that's, maybe that's just the way to go, is to sort of just like, be out there and just be more visible. But I mean, I don't think I would like go into Bridges of Meaning and start participating in those conversations and stuff. I don't. I mean, to your points, Billy and Antonio, like I don't have time for most of that. As much as I like a good kerfuffle, there's other things going on.
Yeah, and I like to say that we're here despite the churches, So maybe at most you can say that, I guess from a Christian standpoint, that maybe something has to change with the church, and then things can open up or move forward in a positive way. But I mean, you probably know my position on that. I don't think that is I don't think that is the problem or solution. Um, so I mean, like, we all ended up here in this space. Well, I say all of us, but I would say just many of us have ended up here because we at least recognize that there's something wrong, and something's been wrong, and something has to change. And we're all wondering where the adults went because they seem to be absent in the room. But
We're the adults now, buddy.
yeah,
Yeah.
gosh, I
Yeah,
know.
that's scary.
I'm past
That's
30 now. Oof.
yeah.
I'm past 40.
Yeah. Well, I'm creeping up to 40. I'm not far from it. Just a year and a half. Year and a half left where I hit 40. Yeah, I didn't think I was gonna make it this far, I'll tell you that. But yeah, I ended up found Jacob the same way. As started with Jordan and ended up with Paul, and then then come across Jacob. But the Jordan Peterson thing for me, that's that resource is that that mine of resources, and I haven't been able to really pay too much attention to Vanderclay for about a year. It's one of the things that I've noticed is you'll get concepts and ideas hammered out pretty good, people, right? But there's such a revolving door that within 3 months, all those people that you've worked those conversations out with, they're all gone. There's all new people, and you got to hash it out all over and again and again and again and again.
It's a circle of life.
Sometimes I
Yeah.
appreciate
So,
that.
well, I mean, I'm not trying to hate on it at all. You know, about I guess almost 2 years ago now. Jacob said to me, and at first I took it as an insult, but I know it. I know he didn't mean it this way. But he goes, it's okay. You don't know much about theology and stuff. That's okay because you're doing God's work with your hands. Like he didn't say it that way, but I'm paraphrasing. But you get the gist of it. And at first it felt like an insult. It's like calling me stupid. But
Sure. Yeah.
then I think about it and I look now and I'm like, yeah, my skill set is hands and feet. One of y'all or somebody else might be really good at having conversations online with people. You know, opening up somewhat of an open dialogue or an open space. You know, within Discord servers and on where more conversations like this have more interest. Because still, even now, if you type in Noahide in Google, there's not a lot of good information.
Beware the Noahide laws.
Yeah. Just pop up. You come across a lot of Torah root stuff right out the get go.
Sure.
And then you'll get a lot of short, 1 minute clips of just do the 7, like 7's easy, and there's not a lot of definition there, and
Right.
so things like this, which I don't think we've been very technical at all, but for someone who has time to listen to us ramble a little bit, stuff like this is what we need out there. So, you know, the I used to say the easiest way to eat elephants is one bite at a time, but I started thinking about it. Is when you think about eating an elephant one bite at a time, I mean, that sounds ridiculous too. One bite at a time. I mean, what do you do? Got a whole leg? right? A whole freaking elephant leg like Fred Flintstone on the back of his car, munching on it. But we got to dissect things even further than that. You're gonna eat any animal versus gut it, skin it, de-joint it, cut everything down into real small pieces, and then it's one bite. And you
And it
don't
has
see
to
a
be
whole
dead
lot of
first.
it. Huh?
And it has to be dead first.
Yeah. See, I even skipped a step there. See, it's easy to
Careful.
skip a step. Yeah.
One of the 7.
Yeah, I know. See,
Between that and your grafting, your plant grafting, Billy, you got
hey man,
a lot to do.
believe it or not, that's complicated. That was a complicated subject. For me, that was a very serious subject.
Well, I get it.
That's complicated to be sure, and I'm not even sure how that applies to me. To be honest with you, I still don't. The rationality does not make sense to me. Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm not the one that makes the decisions of what applies and what don't. Right?
True.
I was gonna say I definitely wouldn't take what Jacob said personally, because you think about the other side of things. You got those people who they're so caught up with debating theology and spending a disgusting amount of time online instead of actually engaging with the world and their communities. And I mean, I've seen it firsthand, so I'm not going to say that's everybody, but
I mean, there are plenty of theology debate bros out there who know lots of stuff and are total a-holes. And so, you don't want to, like, preferable to be the opposite of that, right? Like, be the righteous person who doesn't know about all of that academic kind of stuff. Not talking about Sam. Sam's good people across the board. But you're well, not our Sam. Different. There's a different Sam out there who's kind of a jerk. But anyway, yeah, I think I've sort of found. So having grown up basically CRC myself, I'm pay a little more attention to the CRC stuff just because it's like inside baseball from hometown, um, uh, growing up and everything, and like Paul's series on like the Heidelberg Catechism, right? And so I'm just like paying attention to it again, like with like fresh ears, and yes, Sam Shaman, that's his name. Yeah, what a dirtbag. Anyway,
I don't know who that is.
don't worry about it. It's like it's so cringy. It's just not even worth looking at. But anyway, so like I'm going through this Heidelberg Catechism thing, or listening to Paul's series on the Heidelberg Catechism, or even just some of his like recent little like sermonettes and stuff that he posts on YouTube, where it's like he sets everything up and then all of a sudden just sort of introduces Jesus out of nowhere, kind of like, well, and then Jesus, and I'm like, how does this connect? Right. And so I'm just a little more like, I don't know, irritated or sensitive to that these days. And so it's a kind of like just leading me to be a little more like, all right, like I feel like we need to like dig into this a little more because there's so much kind of like insertion of like this sort of magical thinking about like how to deal with faith and meaning crises here, which is like, well, Christianity. And I'm like, well, I don't know, like that seems so like hand wavy. I mean, although, it's working for some people, between that or like estuary. So I'm not going to like begrudge people what works for them. But I feel like there's like got to be an underserved audience who like, if only they sort of understood what other sorts of options existed, because, most people don't know about Judaism or don't know about like Orthodox Judaism, or they don't understand even the difference between one or the other. Reform, conservative, whatever. So there's just a lot of like, ignorance in like, sort of the most innocent sense of the word, just like not knowledgeable, not even knowing that it's a thing. And then like understanding that you don't necessarily need to you don't need to convert to Judaism to sort of embrace it as your religion. Like there is a path for a non-Jew to follow the God of Israel that's not Christianity and not Islam and not converting to Judaism. It's like a fourth way, but it's um, and also like it, there are definitely, I feel like maybe I fit a psychological profile for whom like it works well for me and just the way I'm wired. So, I guess in some ways, like I'm cautious of like the sort of trying to apply that to like everybody, right? Like making that like a universal thing, like what sort of works well for me just kind of by natural, happenstance versus, what is some of the benefits that are more, applicable. But like, I mean, frankly, I found it to be a relief to embrace Judaism. Like a whole bunch of things made a lot more sense when I was like, oh yeah, like, like for whatever reason, like even things that like I think even for a Christian in the Christian mind are like continuous sources of cognitive dissonance, right? It's like
even the wrestling makes sense now.
The wrestling, yeah, I understand kayfabe or kayfabe, but like
I meant wrestling with God, but
yeah, okay. Well, I mean, I think there's other parts of life. I mean, I think like one of the things I think has been really helpful in life, just outside of religion and stuff, is just thinking about things more probabilistically and like statistically. Like I found that to be like a very like useful paradigm for thinking about things, like what's the likelihood and probabilities of things. So anyway, I thought like there are applications, I think, where embracing Judaism, even as a Noahide, changes the way you look at the world and has far-reaching effects and may or may not help you unlock the intricacies of pro wrestling. But yeah, wrestling with God for sure. And, just like understanding that like the world is not controlled by Satan.
Yes.
It's like there is only one God who made everything and he runs the world.
I've always rejected that idea from the get-go too.
Well, good for you. I mean, lucky you, but like there's a lot of people who have been inundated with this idea that, that there is this group of angels who somehow have a credible threat against God and do their own thing. And I don't know, it's just like it has, I think, effects on people, and it's very like and it's like, well, how was that even? That doesn't even make a lot of sense. You're just like, the questions that kids ask in Sunday school, I think, are very revealing, right? Because those questions don't go away as you become an adult. So if you don't get a good answer from those questions from your churches, it's not just going to disappear, and you're still going to have those. You're still going to wrestle with those questions as you get older, and so I found that like a lot of things fell into place theologically from Judaism, and so I think that there are. I think the field is ripe for for a harvest. But again, it's not as if I'm like out there like, okay, seeking converts. Like that's not.
Well, I think your sleeper cell comment comes to mind here, and there might be a little bit of projection on my part, but for me, a lot of Judaism fit in with me, just from from atheist to Noahide. It just all it made sense, and I guess my first impression of Judaism was of how honest it was. I don't know if that makes sense. It was just like the Odyssey. It's a question. Like there's not an answer. It's a question. It's like what? And this whole idea of salvation and it's going to be fair and God's just. And it's like, oh, so you don't have to accept this particular individual, or it's, maybe not guaranteed for you. It's like, no. And then also God is in control of the whole world and there is no other acting agent upon it. It's
right.
Yeah.
And
right. That all aligned with how I viewed.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
Reward and punishment. I mean, there's the whole premise of Christianity is like not there in Judaism.
So then what I mean by the sleeper cell reference is that I think we agree on this, but I think there's a lot of people who are primed basically to accept Noahidism. Basically, like if they knew about it, I think they would be a Noahide.
Yeah, Judaism.
And
I don't like the
yeah,
term. No, I don't like Noahidism.
I know.
I know. We're like we're totally
I don't
like
like the isms. Yeah,
we're very pioneers in this. So of course, we're not going to settle all these debates, today. But anyway, yes. But Judaism, and then the Noahide path, or that's kind of the popular term for it. Yes.
I mean it's true. I mean they may very well find it that they want to convert. So whatever the case may be,
Sure. Yeah.
I find that a lot of people that I talk to, either they're agnostics, self-proclaimed atheists, those who are religiously unaffiliated, those who like they've always believed in God, but it just doesn't fit with anything. A lot of these people I talk to, and it's not a small number. Like it's probably over 100 at this point. Honestly, a lot of them they express a lot of the same things that I've believed since I was a kid that have aligned with Judaism, as far as what they believe about creation, the purpose of life, and all that. So
yeah. I think it's like you don't even need to go out there and like evangelize as much as just make it known. People just don't know.
well, and that's actually what happened at my estuary. So I've been going to my estuary for a few years, but I don't. Again, for the last year or so, I haven't really gone because I've been busy. It's grown a lot. Like it used to be just a small amount of people, like less than 10. And the last few times I went, when I started going back, it was like 20 some people,
Wow.
which is it's a lot for me anyway, at least for what I'm expecting.
Sure.
And one of the things that we were talking about was post-liberalism, which I kind of brought up with you in the DMs not too long ago. And talk of Noahides came up. And even though like I'm definitely one of the older attendees, like I guess I've been there before a lot of the people that were at my estuary. Like I'm a Noahide, they know that, but they don't even know, like they don't know what it is. Like a lot of them just straight up don't know what it is. And not that I would expect them to, because I told them, like even in the Jewish world, a lot of people don't even know what a Noahide is. So
yeah,
I wouldn't expect people outside of that to know what a Noahide is.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I guess
and it intrigued a few people, which was interesting to me because there's a lot of people in my estuary who are religiously unaffiliated.
Well, and you mentioned Judaism, like for instance, you people go apoplectic, either they love it or hate it or whatever, right? And it's like what they to your point about like Googling Noahide, there's all sorts of conspiracy theory videos and things out there from like these like fringy, fundamentalist Protestant groups and stuff. And, it's just like, so it's not,
it's pure entertainment to me.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's funny, but it's also kind of sad, right? And like that, I think like that's the other thing that you face. Is just the amount of like insane, I mean, call it like Jew hatred that just exists. It's just like it's just a knee jerk reaction, right? And so that I see that as like a big, not necessarily a problem for Noahides per se. Like I don't feel personally like threatened or vulnerable, but like it's just a phenomenon, right? That concerns me because I have obviously a dog in the fight now, in a different way than before. So Trey asks, does it take effort to follow the Noahide laws? Yeah, it does. It takes effort. Some of them are going to be easier or harder for some people than others, but it takes effort to follow those laws.
Yeah. And life takes effort, right?
Yeah, life takes effort, and the Noahide laws are true to life for sure.
So, oh yeah, go ahead.
I'll just get throw Don's comment up. I watched Trent Horn's recent video on Holocaust denial, etc. And the comment section was the typical that makes me despair for the future for humanity. Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like the gloves have come off, the masks have come off. People are just like, just in raw. I mean, on both sides, I guess, but people are definitely not shy about their prejudices. Trey asks how. Well, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say this is kind of I don't know how grounded this thinking is. It's just something I thought of, but kind of interesting how the rise of anti-Semitism. That in itself is not a new phenomenon. Like
Right.
the Jews have always been the canary in the coal mine, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how interesting it is to think that perhaps it's different this time because there might. I mean, I'll just say it. Like there's also going to be a rise. Like there's also this parallel rise of Noahides too. So I'm not sure how that factors into everything, but I'd like to think that I'm more optimistic this time around. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't mean anything. Maybe there's still a lot to fear. But generally, I'm optimistic, and I'm just thinking of how that might factor into today's rising anti-Semitism. And I know for me personally, like I'll speak up if like sentiments are raised like that, and of course it's all situational, right? Like it just kind of depends on the context of what's going on. Like if I feel like my life's threatened, then that's a different story. But thankfully, I can say that has never really happened for me. But I don't know. It's a very interesting and I guess strange time.
Well, it feels like we're moving toward a fevered pitch point where things are becoming more and more polarized, bifurcated. Now, I mean, we've been saying this is like almost a cliche in American politics for a long time, or recently. So maybe it's just our own bias of like what we see in this country. But I mean, yeah, you sort of it feels things feel more black and white. Things feel more good versus evil. But it's like hard to know, like, is this just, are we just in rhetorical madness now, or the other guy's always Adolf, or like what, like, is this
I
just a
want to say
rhetorical
no.
move?
I don't think we're there yet. Asterisk as in we may not get to that point, thankfully. But I mean, I think some people are at that point, but I don't think that's not a reality that we have to necessarily confront, I guess, as the default.
Not in like a life and death struggle, like physically, but like almost like as a,
Like, you mean ideological?
yeah, ideological and existential. Like, yeah, existential is the wrong word because that's like that encompasses like everything. But yeah, ideological for sure.
Well, I would say that, and I might be wrong, but the way I see it, the most polarized groups are still the fringe, the minority. I think most people are either quiet or just go along with it,
Yeah.
but they're not buying that. Like I think there have been a lot of things. Like I think, let's just say the woke. I think the woke have won a lot of fights as far as destroying things. I agree with Jacob that ultimately they're going to lose. It's just a question of how much damage they do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they have done a lot of damage, but I think more or less we're still hanging in there, and I still see a way to swing back in a not so polarizing way either. Not a pendulum swings back full force. Like, hopefully not.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. And again, it could just be the the Noahide colored glasses I'm wearing, right? Where I kind of have these like messianic, kind of.
I just thought of rainbow colored glasses. Sorry.
Fits. Yeah, Noahide glasses. Yeah. It's a bummer. Can't put any rainbow flags outside. Uh-oh, Billy's bringing the pain. I just heard the baby cry. Came off mute.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, no
You're
problem.
good.
Oh, carry on. Trey says, I just can't think of anyone in my life who has truly broken any of the Noahide laws. Hey, Baruch Hashem. Like that's that's where we're trying to get. I mean, I hear you. I guess on one hand, I'm like, we don't need to have like a witch hunt for like, oh, surely you've broken some laws. Like, maybe you haven't. I mean, good for you, I guess. I mean, or good for your friends. I mean, that's great. Like, I don't know. I like that doesn't necessarily prove or disprove, or I mean, what's the point that is trying to be made here? Like, I mean, I think what I was saying earlier about like, is it hard to follow the Noahide laws, or does it take effort? Yes, it takes effort, because not every law is easier than others to follow. Even if you don't like, and again, like the headline laws are different than the laws, like the things that are practical applications of those laws, right? So like, theft is prohibited, but does that mean you're a leftist, Noahide? Yeah, maybe. I mean, well, I don't know. Like, we'll get back to that.
Oh man.
Andrew says, I haven't bought or read Brit Olam. Is it just straight prayers? Are there various times for prayer? I actually haven't. Brit Olam is the prayer book. Which one am I think? What's the other one?
Brit Shalom.
That's the law book. Yeah, it's prayers. I haven't gone through it too much. Like
there's actually a lot. If I remember correctly, I skimmed through it. There's a lot of like tons of prayers.
Tons of prayers. Yeah, lots of psalms and stuff. Are there various times for prayers? Some of them are slotted into like kind of the like contextually appropriate times. But there is like no obligation or set prayer times for Noahides, because we're not commanded to pray, believe it or not. So,
well, rather more specifically, how to pray. And
yeah, I guess that's probably controversial to say we're not commanded to pray, but like it's not one of the 7 per se. I don't know. There's probably some differences of opinion in terms of like what the actual obligation for a Noahide to pray, other than just like kind of like charity giving, right? I can't speak for that, but Caroline says you've got to stand for something or you fall for everything, or fall for anything. Yeah,
it's a song. Yeah,
that's I think that's also somebody else popularized that saying too. Andrew's eating blood. Well, you should repent of that. Richard, you should repent of that too. Jacob says Trey showing he has no idea how detailed the rules are. Yeah, Trey, you should just read the Divine Code. It's got a whole introduction. It will basically tell you what Noahidism is, or what a Noahide is. And I mean, if you read that book, you can't say you don't know what you're talking. You can't say you don't know anything about it anymore. Then you can actually grapple with it. How many of y'all do your prayers? Well, again, like like Jacob just said, Noahides are required to pray to God when they need help, not at set times. But if you must know, I say the Modeh Ani every morning in English, and I still have the Wikipedia page up, and I still read it out of the text, even though I've said it so many times. I feel like I have it memorized, but like I just still read it as like a. I was like that as like a Catholic too. I would always like. I'd read the prayer books. I'd use the prayer books. That's a good thing. Don says, I've skimmed through my Brit Olam and I can't really figure out why I don't like it much, but I don't. I just read Psalms. Hey, to each their own. That's the great thing about being a Noahide. Not that you can make it up as you go. You're not supposed to make anything up, but you you have some freedom.
Yeah, you have a lot more freedom to kind of
Yeah, there's
choose what's
bounds.
going to fit for you. Yes, there's balance. You can find it, but when you start, when you first get into it, trying to find balance is hard. So I think balance comes with time, but there's enough out there at this point to where over a course of time you can figure it out. Figure out. To jump in and touch on Trey
Yeah,
comments for a minute.
yeah,
You know, it, let's just take sexual immorality. Like that shit's so nuanced. There's so many different ways to screw up there. To say that you don't know a single person that has messed that up at least once, you're in denial, big time denial. It's man, it's it's easy. Look, they go for someone to say that the seven Noahide laws are easy. I want that person to give me the technical textbook Judaism definition of what blaspheming is, of what sexual immorality is, what idol worshiping is. I want the Jewish explanation, not your worldly explanation. You can't give me those, then you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And you need to read more.
yeah. I'm trying to find. I think it's Deuteronomy 30. But basically, God says even to the Jews who received all of the Torah, the law is not in heaven, and you can do it. So whether it's I guess easy or hard is kind of immaterial. It's doable. Um, and no, so Trey says, so is being a Noahide just by faith alone? No, no. I mean, it's although that's an interesting question because you could say like, oh, it's actually by works alone, but there's a nuance in it in terms of um, are you following those laws because they were commanded to you by God at Sinai through Moses in particular, or are you just doing them because they're logical? And there is a distinction between those two aspects. Um, and Trey says there's no requirement on prayer or church service. As far as I understand, there is no. I mean, like Jacob said it, like Noahides are required to pray to God when they need help, but not at set times. So there's no obligation to like say prayers 3 or 5 times a day or anything like that. And there's no requirement for any sort of services, attending them, or I mean, God forbid, setting them up. Weird question from Andrew says, weird question. What is a patriarch and why is Noah not one? I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, he's not a patriarch in the way that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are patriarchs. Probably just the nature of his relationship with God.
Well, I don't know. I seem to remember reading something that Noah is a patriarch of the human race. Then.
Right. Like Adam's not a patriarch either, right? But at the same time, does
But
that.
humanity, they would be.
Well, I mean, he's like the patriarch, right? Like par excellence.
Right. And so, as far as Noahides are concerned, if we're going with the whole, our covenant comes from Noah's time, then Noah would be our only patriarch, other than Moses, maybe. If
Yeah.
it's reiterated, if we're going with it with the covenants reiterated on Mount Sinai, then our only patriarchs would be Noah and Moses.
Yeah, it might be because of well, there was a covenant with Noah. I'm looking at random Quora answers. I'm looking at there's an AI. When I googled is Noah a patriarch, and the AI response says yes, Noah is considered a patriarch in the Abrahamic religions, including Judaism. I don't know.
I actually kind of appreciate the AI answers just to see how off the rails it is.
I mean, it's not
It's kind of weird.
It's not a stupid answer. I mean, it's okay. So Jacob says translate patriarch to Hebrew, then ask the question. Yeah, Andrew, booyah. Reformulate your question. Yeah.
Going back to I think it was Don who said it, the Brit Olam book.
Yeah.
I didn't really read through it. Can't really say that I like it or not. I just didn't really read through it, just skim through it. But I do like using the the corresponding prayer book that comes with, or that goes along with the Divine Code. I think it's called Prayers, Blessings, and Principles of Faith for Noahides. So that's an option.
I think another thing that I've kind of learned is that and I'm not sure if this is like an accurate way to say it, but I'll say it anyways. Like the sort of primary way of connecting with God is through commandments, right? Not prayer. Like prayer is a way, and prayer is commanded to Jews, right? But like in the way that God has like revealed himself or like and given us the means to connect with him is through commandments, instruction, right? Like the Torah. So it's like prayer is not as primary. And so okay, so
yeah, I think this.
So you connect to God how he decides, not how you decide. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think this. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I guess like, so it's not about your prayer life. It's what God said, hey, this is how you're going to connect with me. And so those are the things you should focus on first and foremost. Which is why, so it's like, it seems like crazy, to say like, yeah, prayer's not that important to me as a Noahide or something. Like, it's not because I don't want to communicate or talk to God or anything like that, but it's like, that's not the focus of the connection. I mean, there's a subjective element to it, I guess, in a way, but the objective piece is not, one of the 7 Noahide laws is not like you have to pray to me all the time or like, say these things or do these things, right? So,
I think I was going to say, I think this is like a perfect example of one of the misconceptions of Judaism, especially if you're coming from like Christianity or a different religion.
Don says, well, that's a relief. Yeah. I mean, kind of.
But yeah, it's like, I think Jacob said it perfectly, but I was going to say, it's like if God commanded us to pray, right? That's what we would be doing. But the way as it stands for Noahides and how we received the revelation at Sinai for all of humanity, with the Jews being the light to the nations, we have the 7, and then how it trickles down into the different layers of understanding what that means. But yeah, it's like I know sometimes, and I wasn't trying to I was trying to avoid to name Trey by name, but he's just like the guy that I think of who does this on the Discord. but it just kind of seems to be a misguided fixation on what you want, like what you think it should be. Like, this is what it means to be religious. You're asserting like, oh, there has to be this specific ritual and these practices and this prayer at set times, and it's not about that. It's about what's expected of you. And then, I mean, I'm a fan of the mystical as well, so it's also how God reveals Himself to you as well in your personal life, as far as like where your attention's going to be. Like, I'm gonna use a personal example. But when it was becoming apparent that I wasn't gonna be able to attend synagogue as much as I'd like, I talked to the rabbi. And I told him like, yeah, I kind of feel bad. I wanted to attend more and be more involved. But he kind of just reassured me and said, I'm gonna paraphrase. I don't remember exactly how he worded it, but essentially that whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm focused on, where my time is, like that's where God wants me to be, and so that kind of gave me some reassurance at the time as well. So
Yeah.
and yeah.
I mean, it's almost like, imagine if the one, there was one Noahide law, which was don't kill anybody. Like, that was it. That was the only law. Right. And so, like, for most of us here, I hope, like, we've never killed anybody. Even, and if it was just like, not even like don't talk gossip or anything like that, just like literally don't like murder the person physically. That's the only law I have. Right. And it's like, okay, so that's all you have to do. Like, can you just accept that? Can you just accept that God gave a set of laws and just make sure you follow them? And I guess, like, to your point, like, it's just for a lot of people though, it's just so like, well, wait, I mean, but don't I have to go and sacrifice a bunch of stuff, and like, don't I have to, like, it needs to be inconvenient and pain me. I need to like do a thing. I need to like, it's like people have all these like subjective needs of like, well, I just want to like, I want to feel like I am, I don't know. And I guess this is kind of going back to my thing about how, like, personally for me, I'm just like, my default mode is maybe more atheist. So I'm just kind of like, like, I don't want, like, I don't know. I'm like the lazy Noahide. I'm like, just give me the bare minimum.
I mean, you got a family you're raising, so
well, of course. But like, there's, sure. But even if I was a single dude, or something, like, I don't know. I just like, it doesn't bother me, even though I've lived.
Yeah, exactly what Jacob just said.
The lazy Noah, I have 4 kids. Yeah, but like, I'm just saying, like, from the standpoint of like, everyone's got kids. That's mundane, regular, secular life. It's not.
Does Trey have kids?
No, Trey doesn't have kids. I don't think. Well, none that we know about. But having gone through the raised Christian, become Catholic, even consider the priesthood, like, I understand the liturgical life and the prayer life and all those parts, and I did them, and they weren't always easy, but it's there's no like hole in my soul from not having that be a thing anymore. And well, go ahead.
You mind if I backtrack just ever so slightly?
Please.
When we were talking about prayer just a little bit earlier, I like to call prayer soul maintenance because, doing the commandments and trying to follow God's word and His intentions is a very physical action. I mean, there's spiritual involved, but it's very physical. With prayer, it's all spiritual. And I think prayer is good maintenance on the soul. I know we're not commanded to do it, but I don't think we're commanded to be fruitful and multiply neither. So
Yeah.
if you're not going to pray because you're not commanded, then does that mean you shouldn't have kids because you're not commanded? You
Well,
know,
it comes to that should question, right?
should, yeah, it does. But I think prayer is still going to be a very valuable part of your walk. I mean, even if it's not regimented, even if it's not every day, it's still going to be. You can go through this. You know, everybody here is married, or at least the three of us are married. Could you imagine just going through your honey-do list all day long, every day in, day out, but actually not talking to your wife? You know how screwed up everything would get. Like the household would fall apart in 3 weeks if you didn't talk. You just went off the written list. You never talk about anything, and that's how I see prayer. You know,
Yeah.
if you're not doing prayer, you're trying to go at it alone. You know, uh, and to walk with God is definitely a team sport, man. It's not me, myself, and I. It's him, and then me sometimes.
Yeah. Well, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you shouldn't pray, and I'm not saying that I don't. But
He's just saying
Right.
he's lazy.
Yeah. I wasn't saying that. I was just trying to clarify it a little bit. I was
no,
trying
I
sharpen that point.
appreciate that. I think you're right. I think it's important. I think it's a good thing to do. Like again, I'm not um, uh, against it, but I find that like I'm much more drawn to like it'd be nice to be like, hey, great, I need a structured prayer life handed to me, but that doesn't exist for the Noahide, So, um,
Well, you could convert.
I could, yeah, maybe. That's a complicated question, but
And I don't think you're lazy, by the way. Just
no, I don't. I'm being facetious. Trey says it's not that I think it should be this way. I just think it doesn't mean anything if it doesn't like it's closer to the golden rule than anything religious. Well, where does the golden rule come from? Judaism. So yeah, it's close to the golden rule. Like Antonio said, you got here through Weinstein, but Noahidism doesn't have most of the things he said about religion, such as ritual or community.
I don't know what the point is, but yeah, that was part of the journey for arriving here. Brett Weinstein, referring to, was the.
I mispronounced that on purpose. Sorry, but I was like, I had no idea. I had no idea which. Is he talking about you because of your Brett Weinstein?
Yeah, I think so.
Path? Okay.
Yeah, Brett, you could say that was the first person to like take whatever openness I had to religion and like spread it like a few more.
Okay. By the way, this is why punctuation is so important, and Gen Zers need to like get this through their heads. You can't parse this sentence without commas and have it actually make sense without knowing your mind. Like Antonio said, you said. Anyway, I'm not going to sit here and do a grammar lesson, but my God, use a comma.
Well, I like Reveki's whole religion without a religion thing.
What?
Say
more.
Not his. I mean, just the concept, not his version of it. Just the concept. I like to see Noahidism, as a religion without a religion. I don't at this point. I don't want a religion. Some people need it. Some people need to have the structure of going to church and being, or going to synagogue and being reinforced with that you're doing the right thing and you're thinking the right way and so on and so forth. Uh, I, me personally, and I need that too from time to time. But me personally, I like the idea so much better of, I'm living my life in a God-centered way, and so there's in that retrospect, there's no need for a religion. If I know what God-centered looks like, then I can walk my life according to that. and there's no need to even walk in a building. Like, we can handle these things in our small communities, friends, families, kids, things like that. You just need to, when bad things happen, you need the broader community to get together. But you know, on a regular basis, I don't really see the need for a formalized religion at this point. 6 months ago, I had a very different opinion. It's
Yeah,
just
you've seen the Rabbi Schulman light now.
yeah, I have. I have.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, like we're not supposed to start our own religion, right? And so I mean that's good. That's good. That's good. Trey says, fine. It just seems that everything the TLC is about, ritual, ceremony, imagery, community, Noahidism doesn't have. Yes, and that's why the TLC sucks.
Yeah. Well, that's my whole point. I'm kind of soured to the TLC to begin anyway. So I just do I really need a big haired church lady telling me what to do with my life? No, no. Me and my family and the spiritual leader I choose can decide that. I don't need the scrutiny and the problems that big faith groups have to offer. I don't need it.
Yeah, like why
I
avoid that mess, unnecessary mess, right?
now with that said, I am kind of being slightly hypocritical because I'm still riding on the coattails of the churches and jumping on their disaster relief programs and going and doing God's work on their, off there. So I'm being slightly hypocritical on that.
Well, I mean, there's a difference between like participating at the one level versus the other. So Trey, you need to unpack this one. So Noahidism sadly has very little utility compared to Christian orthodoxy. I don't know what that means. I'm sure I don't agree with it, but I also don't know what it means to disagree with it in a cohesive way. Um, I I've said it before. I'll say it again. I feel like calling it Noahidism is wrong, but you can't call it well, it's Judaism for non-Jews, but like that's such a mouthful, and there's so much context there that you need to explain. Like
you can say Noahidism when you're talking to adults. How about that?
Well,
I mean, even then, if people ask me like, "Hey, what's your religion?" I'm like, "Well, I mean, it's like you want to say it in a way where it's like if they don't follow up with a question, like you haven't like left something ambiguous in their head. I mean, yeah. So Jacob says it's Judaism,
Yeah,
but we can't go around calling ourselves Jews.
But Jonathan, we were just talking about how we're gonna talk about Judaism and Torah to the rest of the world. And it's a perfect It's a perfect hook. It's like, oh yeah, it's Judaism, and then they're like, "You're a Jew," and you're like, "No," and then they just scratch their heads, like,
well,
what?
Okay.
Shulman does a good job of breaking that up, though. And so does W. Singer.
Yeah, but I think we need the right words. We need better marketing for the Noahide path.
God-fearer.
Yeah, but but Christians are God-fearers too, man. Like, I mean, so are Muslims, right? Like, there's lots of like, I that doesn't work because no one knows what that even means, anyways. So it's too generic. And Jacob says like you're Jew-ish, but like that doesn't translate well into like saying it out loud, right? Like I'm Jew-ish. I mean, it's just like it's like something out of Seinfeld. So it just doesn't it doesn't translate, which is frustrating. Like anyway.
Technically, the religion is Judaism, but the nationality is Hebrew. So yeah, I mean, technically you could say that you follow Judaism. Technically, an Orthodox Jew is in Hebrew, right? And and according to them, they're not part of a religion anyway. They're part of a nation, and that's
Yeah,
the Hebrew nation.
sure.
You know, the nation of Israel. So
I mean, I guess, yeah. I guess you have Catholics and Orthodox will say that they're Catholic and Orthodox, which is a subset of Christianity, and but so I guess you could say like I'm a Noahide, and people are like, oh, what's that? It's like, well, I'm basically a Jew without being part of the. It's just
well,
there's so much. Um, it's not baggage, but anyway, it's my own thing. That's my OCD.
well, I mean, in our culture, if you say an Ashkenaz Jew, people will
Yeah.
know the difference. Like they'll know there's a difference. So maybe a Noahide Judaism or something like that. I don't know if I know. Hyphenated Judaism with
That's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea. Be like, oh yeah, I'm Noahide Jewish or something like that. It's like, well, what's that?
Well,
I mean,
I just tell people I'm
yeah.
Noahide, and they ask, and then I tell them I'm
yeah.
a non-Jew who follows Torah or Judaism. So
Yeah, or a non-Jew who follows Noah.
But we're not really following Noah.
It was a
But
bad joke.
I know what you mean. Okay. I got you.
yeah, I
Sorry.
agree with Jacob on that.
What's that? People overthink it. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely overthinking it, but this is the venue for me to overthink it with you guys. All right, Trey says,
I,
who's Robert Putnam? I've heard that name. The benefits of religion come from going to church, not from beliefs. I think he's wrong on both counts. What were you going to say, Billy?
I don't think Jacob has a whole lot of room to talk about people overthinking things.
Touche. Oh, the Bowling Alone guy. Yeah, I don't know. That's that book, I think. Right?
All I'm seeing is Trey is still approaching this from a secular approach. So it's like, okay, you don't have to subscribe to the God of Abraham, but like
I mean,
we're working from different frames here. So
I mean, these are orthogonal concerns. I mean, you can be a Noahide and go to estuary, or you can just be a Noahide and not do estuary, or you can be a non-Noahide or an atheist and go to estuary. Like, if you want to scratch that social community itch, you can do it in other ways. You don't need it to be tied to your religion.
Well, Antonio, did we touch on anything you wanted to talk about, buddy?
I mean, I was pretty open to the conversation going wherever. I guess if we had to end it on something, I'd like to hear what you guys think where Noahide movement is going to go. I'm going to try not to say Noahidism. I'm just kidding, Jonathan.
I'll leave it alone.
Yeah.
Where it's going?
Yeah. So where do you think it's going to go?
Well, I would expect to see more people coming out of the woodwork, and like just more kind of random, more kind of individuals in I guess in all of our like collective social spheres, right? Like you should just be encountering more Noahides if this is actually a thing. So that would be something I'd be looking for. And then I would imagine that the next frontier is going to be if there's enough of them in a geographical area. How does that look in terms of their connection to a local shul, or how are they going to navigate and negotiate their own like community setup? because it's fine for there to be a Noahide community center. It's fine to have social stuff. It's just like I think it's more about making sure you're not violating the prohibition to form your own religion. So if Noahides get together for a barbecue, that's not against the law. But if they start doing like liturgical crap or whatever, then that is right. So
we're saying that God commanded this barbecue.
Yeah. Although the barbecue could be a Noahide sacrifice. that's a anyway. But I mean, I don't know. I think I would see it as signs of the messianic age getting closer, and I would look at that with a bunch of other signs as well. I mean, I don't want to use the Z word or get anywhere close to that on Jacob's channel, but I mean, if you just certainly you have to watch and pay attention to what's going on in the old homeland. So, I would hope that there's going to be more resources out there for various types of, like you want to embrace Noahidism. I'll say it there. I'll say it. I'll use the N word. If you're coming from Islam, you're coming from Christianity, you're coming, and like there's just going to be different modes. And I think what's important is for people who get on the path to try to accelerate their learning in the way and also accelerate the unlearning of the things that they need to unlearn. So, I mean, right now it tends to be Christianity is sort of the most common starting point for Noahides in the West, at least. And so, more of a, kind of a more than just like, read the divine code, but also like, here are the, here's Jewish cosmology. And like, here are the things that like, you just, need to sort of like internalize that, like, Satan doesn't run the world kind of thing. Like I was talking about earlier, like just those sort of things, which are things that are integral to Christian theology and culture that need to be sort of pulled out. Or just the whole concept of like, well, what do we do for rituals anymore? It's like, well, you got to just unlearn some of these like habits. And so I think that's important for the inevitable. I mean, if you have thoughts that this movement's going to accelerate, and I think it will accelerate too. I think we're very early. If we're like talking like COVID timelines, we're like, when there's a couple of headlines of like, oh, something's breaking out in China. Hasn't hit like Europe yet. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think we're super, super early, but in the next 5 to 10 years, it could be, I mean, who knows? It's God runs the world. I don't know. And it's hard to like disentangle your own sort of, well, this is my subjective, this is what I'm focused on, right? It's like whatever that effect is, where you, if you buy a new Toyota and now all you see on the road are Toyotas, or like you're in the market for like a particular type of car. And so now you see all those cars everywhere. It's like, that could be what's going on. But I think that, but I think there needs to be a much more resources available.
Yeah. One of the things that I would like to see in the future, so rabbis can have spots that they focus in where they, they get their certificate on this specific thing, or this specific set of things. I would like to see a shoal in the next 25 years or so actually have a Noahide portion where it's a not Judaism for non-Jews, a structured training program for for rabbis that would want to go into that thing instead of it being, well, you kind of got to listen to 35 hours of Shulman talk about stuff you don't understand to know what questions to ask if this person knows what they're talking about or not. Be really cool to just, oh, they got the little certification thing like they do for everything else. Okay, they went to shul, they know what they're talking about in this specific category.
Yeah, so like Jewish experts on Noahide law.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, there's not any type of program for that whatsoever. And I'm not saying every shul should have one, but all I'm saying is it would be beneficial to the community to at least have an option in one of the shuls somewhere across the world. You know what I mean?
Be nice if there was one handy at your local Chabad.
No, I'm not going that localized, but sure. Just one handy in the world somewhere. You know what I mean? Israel, whatever. Just where there's actually an option.
Jacob says a rabbi can be tested on any area of law to be ordained. I have suggested to Chazi that he should get ordained on the Noahide laws.
Whoa.
I mean, that's why I think it's important for Noahides to show up bearing gifts of Sheva Mitzvah Hashem or whatever the Hebrew book, and say, hey, learn this or teach me this. Although I'm curious, so I think right now we're kind of in a stage where a lot of Noahides are going to be autodidactic, right? They obviously, you have to be kind of like self-motivated to learn these things and ask the questions and figure things out, because there is no on-ramping, curriculum that's sort of readily available in the public for Noahides. So I think that probably there need to be more Noahide. I think what you'll see too is you will get the quote unquote Noahide sage. It's such a goofy term. I mean, sages, right? If coming from a non-Jewish world, like sages is like a wizard or something out of a fantasy, or like it means like a seriously learned person with a long white beard, down to their ankles and stuff. So to sort of use that term as just a learned rabbi or teacher of Noahide laws that's not a Jewish rabbi per se, that's but I think the Noahides are going to have to have teachers and leaders come up from within their own community, because they're going to outnumber the Jews 10-1. So
And what a time that'll be.
yeah, I mean, and that's why I think that you're going to see an acceleration that's going to be geometric. So it'll be here before you know it.
Pray to see it in my lifetime,
Yeah, well, you're pushing 40, right?
No, not me.
You're not even there yet? You in your 20s?
No. I'm in my 30s now, but
yeah, you're getting.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm pushing 40. Okay, that's all it takes.
Well, I'm just saying
you cross the line.
Maybe you have 100 years left, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so. I think we should do what we can to try to push it along. I think somebody asked how can a Noahide help usher in the Messianic age, and I was like, cattle farming or become a rancher.
Yeah. Brilliant answer.
They seem to have plenty of red heifers over there in Israel right now, so we'll see. we shall see. I mean, like, and I don't know. Like, will the third temple get built before this? Like, what's what's the order of these things? Who knows, right? Like, what will come first? The deluge of Noahides, or something happening with Israel or with the Messiah or something, right? That will like um, be the sort of precursor to a very quick, call it a mass conversion or something like that, right? I don't know, but there's a lot of questions to sort out first. I think, even for us early adopters.
Yeah.
So I think we just
Sure.
start there and like build the foundation and sort of stumble through the darkness kind of and sort it out, pave the way for the next group, and then it just gets easier and easier.
Well, and contrary to what Trey said about utility, Judaism has thoroughly equipped me for the journey ahead, whatever that entails for me. Because it's like I knew that I wanted a family uh, a little bit before I became Noahide or acknowledged myself as Noahide. Um, but having since declared myself Noahide, like everything changed. Like even just wanting a family, I would say that it definitely set off all those things because it wasn't just like I want to have a family or I think it's good. It's like, and I know we're not commanded to in the same way that Jews are to be fruitful and multiply, or I guess there are different opinions on it at least. But I know that it's a good thing, and marriage is a good thing. I mean, I would say that from what I understand, marriage is. It seems like marriage is one of the highest expressions of a relationship with God in a way. So I guess you could reduce that down and just simply say, "Oh, everything's just been imbued with purpose because it comes from a uh, higher power," and that's true. Um, but it's a lot more than that. And with this whole stumbling in the dark thing, with what it means to be a Noahide and what it's going to be like in the future, um, in a very real sense, I don't really have a lot of worries or fears about it because I mean, I guess the simple answer is I just trust in God, but not to say that it's not a Jesus take the wheel thing. It's just I think whatever I find myself in, like that's what I'm supposed to be engaging with. Like that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And that has a lot of meaning to me. So
All right, fellas, I'm gonna have to cut this short. 4:30's coming pretty quick.
yeah, we went a
Yikes.
little over.
Yeah. Well, we can land it here. Thanks, gents, for doing this. We'll do it again. I hope sometime in the near future. Yeah, that's one of the problems of having kids and responsibilities. It's hard for us.
We're all sleep deprived.
Yeah, us
Took a bit to get it going. No.
fruitful Noahides to. Last comment here from Jacob. Noahides are required to engage in the continuity of the world, not specifically by having their own children, but that can also include having their own children. So there it is. All right. Well, I will end the stream and have a good night, everyone.
Good night. Be well.
Good night.
Peace.
Appreciate y'all. Thank you.
You too.